Got the fuzzy coming back.
Yeah, I gotta shave the beard now because I've got the haircut. So now it looks like I take care of myself from here to like right about where my ears are, and then I fall apart. And I should make it at least to my neck. That's true.
All right. I don't have a lot this week, man. I really don't. So hope you have enough to carry the show.
I always do.
Okie dokie. You were going to work on the intro, so fire off whenever you are ready.
Whoops.
Good job. I don't know what are we I guess we could start with making our Twilio board here. Oh shit, somebody took the template. Oh, here it is. It's way over here. Move this over here. All right, copy. '96, 2018, 02, 22. All right, episode 96. And 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to PHP Ugly, episode 96. I am your host, Tom Rideout. Alongside me, as always, is Eric Van Johnson. Hello,
Hello.
Eric.
Hello, Thomas.
And sitting out sick today, after professing that he is the picture of health, is John Congdon. I'm afraid that he can't be with us tonight.
Well, the reality of it, Thomas, is you didn't even need to say that because nobody would have even noticed that he's missing had we gone on with the show.
I'm assuming he's having some kind of bowel issue, but I can't be sure exactly. So I know he's not well.
The problem with John is, he's so even-tempered, level-headed, and logical. He really doesn't fit well in the show at all between you and I, who seem to yell and bicker a lot. So
yeah, he does act as the foil for us a little bit, though.
What have you been up to this week, Thomas?
Absolute total chaos, as usual. Taking over a lot of duties at work, and
you said duties.
I did. And it's just today was a chaotic day. I had 2 kids band concerts in a row this week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've done elementary band programs, you know they can be extraordinarily tedious. The elementary school stuff, very beginner level, but I'm proud to say that it was quite entertaining. Very good performances at the junior high and high school level. So
it's amazing what those junior high and high schoolers can do, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I when my daughters were in high school, especially, and they did high school choir, and I remember going to some of the events and thinking to myself, I don't ever remember any of us being this talented at this age. We weren't.
No,
we were not this talented.
I'm easily outclassed by my daughter. She is good enough at what she does to believe that she is terrible at it now. So I'm teaching her all the lessons about how it feels to be grossly uncomfortable with your capabilities.
Yeah. You mentioned new duties. What new duties do you have? Anything you can share with us? Talk to us about?
A lot of production server deployments and coordinating some of the junior developers. I've told you in the past that I am a senior developer in title, but I do very little organization of developers. But I've been doing a lot of coordination, organization, and task tracking lately. So it's been interesting. It's been fun, sort of wielding that power as iron-fistedly as I can.
How many developers do you have under you now?
I have 3 developers under me, but 2 that I'm working with primarily on these projects, front-end developers, that I'm sort of getting everyone to dance together to the same tune.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, your shop, is it all PHP, or do you dabble in other developers as far as like maybe some Node or something like that?
I deal with all of the real JavaScript, the stuff that isn't just implementing a library.
Mm-hmm.
And I deal with a majority of the PHP, and the rest of it would be just CSS, HTML, front end guys. We don't really use anything like Node or anything else like that.
Well, right. So all your backend is all PHP.
Yeah.
Is it how much of it is? I know you were using Laravel for a little bit. Are you guys mainly Laravel, or it's just straight PHP, or
We're
anything
all
else?
Laravel now, man.
All right.
We've fully dedicated every system, every legacy system now has been rewritten into Laravel, and yeah, we're complete 100% Laravel right around the time where I want to use Symfony.
Well, that's got to make things like managing deployments a little easier, because at least you're standardized on a framework, and so you can start to standardize on a deployment mechanism.
Yeah, it is a big shop, so we have a lot of people who are in charge of a lot of different operations components,
Mm-hmm.
different reporting engines, and we have load balancing that I don't have to deal with or manage at all, things like that. But it is nice to have sort of unified base for deployments at the very least.
I played a little bit this past week with Laravel Envoy. So I do with one of our clients. I do a bunch of proof of concept stuff where they'll ask, "Hey, what would it take to do this? What would this look like? How difficult is this? How does it feel?" And I start spinning up proof of concepts and setting up the proof of concept stuff to kind of follow our normal deployment procedure, through which this client lives and breathes in Amazon, the AWS service. And we have a pretty complex and well thought out deployment system for the production, staging, and development environments out there that the team is constantly kind of tweaking, managing. And I actually got some news we can talk about there as well. But for the POC stuff, it doesn't make sense to go through this whole deployment process that they have for all the other systems. And I was looking for a way to just quickly deploy things as I was doing POCs, allow me to just create some code, push it, and be done with it. So I've used things like Ansible in the past. My go-to for years was just this really well thought out Bash script that I used. Then one of the guys at Diego Dev, Kalen, turned me on to Ansible, which I kind of look at Ansible as almost like a Bash framework. So I started using Ansible for my deployments, and that works really well. And but for this POC stuff, since I was in the Laravel project and I was already there and I was already in my Laravel directory, I'm like, let me see how difficult it would be to use Envoy to set up to do these deployments. And gotta say, I'm not unhappy with it. It's pretty simple to do. It's pretty efficient. It's not like Ansible, or maybe it is. I haven't looked that deeply into it, but like with Ansible, we have an Ansible server, or we used to. I don't even think we use Ansible anymore, but we used to have an Ansible server where we'd submit branches. When we merged pull requests into the master branch, CodeShip would kick off, and it would kick off the Ansible script, and it would all deploy automatically. With Envoy, it's like back in the old days where I have to deploy from my desktop. It's not running on a server somewhere. So I haven't really thought through what it would take to kind of automate that process. And I don't know if I'm going to even put the effort into it. Like I said, this is all just proof of concept stuff.
Yeah,
So
I use Deploy HQ.
that's a
And
popular one. Yep.
Yeah, it ties nicely into Git, and you can set all sorts of configuration files, build groups, commands that are executed before, after, or on the first time, stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
very nice and flexible.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with CodeShip. It's pretty simple. Easy to implement. One tool we've been using, and too bad John's not on because I think John's actually using this now. So we use a tool called Scrutinizer, which just kind of does code evaluation and grading on code basis uh, based on the code that's been submitted. But John's actually using Scrutinizer to do his whole, like we use with CodeShip. Scrutinizer not only analyzes the code, but it does a whole build process and make sure it passes its test before deploying. I need to pick his brain a little bit more on that and see if we can start to wean off CodeShip, because not that there's an issue with CodeShip, but at that point it would be like an overlapping technology that we don't even really need. If I can, with Scrutinizer, if I can get that code analysis, which is how we're using Scrutinizer now, along with a build and deploy process, then I really don't even need CodeShip anymore.
Yeah, I've used Jenkins in the past for doing build management stuff, but I haven't used much beyond that for like really building, doing the gulp and unit testing and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I think that's something John has some experience in the past. I've only played with Jenkins in the past. We had a couple of presenters at SDPHP do talks on Jenkins, and it looks super cool and really complete. They were using it. It would do this build, like you said, run this unit test. That it would actually log to things like I don't know if they're using Logly or.
Well, it's all modular, so you can use whatever you want, but that also is what makes it so much more complicated.
Yeah.
Speaking of SDPHP, you had a meetup this week.
So did you, right? Peak PHP had a meetup, didn't it?
Supposed to.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, let me talk about mine then first. I'm telling you, when you stepped away from the group, another person stepped up to kind of fill your shoes as an organizer. And this individual is always so quiet. I'm telling you, he's going to blow up. He's actually going to blow up because Marcus Moore is kind of our third wheel, which is I mean that in a loving, caring way, with as far as being an organizer of the PHP community here in San Diego. He was my right-hand man for the Laravel group. When the Laravel group kind of went away, he kind of stepped in the role with the PHP group. And he's just one of these cats that he's such a nice person. He's so talented. He's so smart. He's well-spoken. He's got, just great thought process and a real nice person to talk to. But he does this talk, and I've seen him. He's done a couple of talks in the past, but he's always very hesitant about doing talks. And he did a talk last night on web scraping, and he just does great talks. I don't want to be biased, but I really want him to submit a talk to Wave PHP, because I think if I get him to give a talk or two in front of a larger crowd, a larger PHP community crowd who are throughout the country, a lot more people would have the same appreciation I have for Marcus. He's just a real gem in the PHP community, and I hope he continues to grow in that role and I hope he doesn't forget who helped him get there. But yeah, Marcus did a fantastic talk on web scraping. We had a huge turnout.
Really?
I think we had RSVPs in the 30s, and we had a turnout of, I think I counted 27 or 28 head count.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a great, like 80%, 85% turnout. All the chairs were taken, and it was really good. I love those sort of meetups. Like, I always think I like the small meetups when there aren't a lot of people there, and we can kind of have these like detailed Q&A sessions. But then I get to these meetups where we have a big turnout, and especially when there are a lot of new faces or people who don't come month after month, and just the conversations that start, the questions that are asked, the general back and forth, it really kind of rejuvenates my passion for things like meetups and get-togethers. So, how did it doesn't sound like yours was as successful though. What happened?
No. Well, I told you
Maybe I should send Marcus out to you.
So I had some surprise children's performances at school this week. And the situation where the teenager comes home and says, "By the way, I have a thing tonight. Don't forget, I told you about it a month and a half ago." And then you go through their backpack and there's 3 letters to you that say, "Don't forget, they're going to need this and this and this tonight." And so had 2 of those pop up, and unfortunately one of them was during the PHP meetup here. So I was very saddened I wasn't able to make that one.
Oh,
But
okay. But they still had it, right?
they still had the meetup. I believe they talked about Git. I have to look that up. Well, you remember how we were saying at the beginning we didn't have the most stuff to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a question from Jeff Post in the chat room. Did you see that?
Oh, no, I'm not even running chat. I'm glad you reminded me. What's his question?
So he was wondering how we added Laravel to an existing project. So I was talking earlier about porting some legacy stuff over to Laravel, and I know you guys have done similar stuff. In fact, you have a Greenfield app that you're probably doing that with, right?
Well, no, I mean, that wouldn't be the definition of a Greenfield app is no legacy code, so not exactly.
Well,
but
that's kind of what we did as well. So we just sort of isolated out the functional components of the old system and built a brand new system parallel to it. So fortunately, it was mostly a back-end system. It was just PHP logic and not a lot of templating stuff that changes frequently in the in Laravel.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just was defining the functionality and recreating it when we could copy and paste it, and when we couldn't copy and paste it, then analyzing the code line for line to find where the breaking change was and porting it over. But I find myself less and less using the Laravel functionality of Laravel and writing very generic classes and instantiating them instead of doing the AD, what's it called? The service providers or the named arguments.
Because of facades? I'm not sure what you're going for.
Well, yeah,
but
I'm not using the facades.
Go ahead and mull over that for a little bit, because I do want to dive into this some. So maybe perhaps you misunderstood me. When I was correcting you on the Greenfield app, my point being, you don't wrap a Laravel application around a Greenfield app. Greenfield app is a new app, but we do have our largest, one of our bigger clients has a huge legacy application code base in which, yes, exactly what you said, we wrap that into a Laravel application. So we essentially have two code bases going. There is the legacy app, which has all its components. This predates any composer. There's no routing system in there. It's old school. Go to this file
Yeah, like one file per
to open it.
page.
Right. Um, there's that, which is this just a huge application, monolithic application to the max that our client wanted to get off. So what we ended up doing is we deployed a Laravel application in it. We had to make some tweaks to the way the routing's handled, but essentially what happens is that I'm trying to remember the exact order. I believe the order is that when it hits a route, it sees if that route resolves within the Laravel application. If it does, the Laravel application takes precedence. It handles that route. If a route doesn't resolve in the Laravel application, it then gets kicked back out to the legacy app and sees if that route resolves with the legacy app. I've got to say it went. It is still going splendidly well. There are some caveats. We did hit a couple bumps in the road, but all in all, was a fantastic idea. The reason we decided to go greenfield with this particular client, and this is the same client, is because that whole process, one of the shortcomings of it, and one of the problems with the legacy code base was the legacy data structure, the whole database, the architecture behind the database, the way tables relate and the way they're laid out. So we found ourselves, even with the Laravel wrapper, we were basically going into all of our models, having to customize the models, change the IDs, change the convention, change the create at date and the format of it. And there was a lot of tweaking with the models. And even after that, just the way the data was laid out and the way it was structured was a pain. So we decided to sell the whole greenfield app to the client. And we talked about it a little bit on the show a couple shows back, and they bought it. And the nice thing is we can dispense with all the legacy stuff and start building new. But the Laravel wrapper was a great solution. It is a great solution. And we still, immediately after implementing it, immediately without even having Laravel handle any of the application itself, we got things like migrations, which was huge. Because prior to that, we were manually running. There was a huge file that we kept in the directory of all the SQL commands that were being run.
No.
So right off the bat, the migrations were a huge benefit. Now you can have migrations without deploying an entire framework, but our goal was to move components over into the framework. And we started doing that. It was a very slow process, and it wasn't going to fix the application or the platform as much as we hoped. And that's why we've kind of have since pivoted a little bit and have gone with the greenfield.
Yes.
Now, I say all that. I'm sorry, I'll cut you off, but I say all that because, oddly enough, I think, if I'm not mistaken, John has written about this in PHP Architect, which was nice.
Yeah, he wrote about that about a year ago, I think.
Yeah, and he wrote about it based on the experience we were having with this client. But and going through the talks for Wave PHP, I have probably seen 4 or 5 talks of that topic, specifically using frameworks with legacy code, using Laravel with legacy code, updating legacy code. There's a lot of talks around legacy code, and those are very appealing to me because I think as a community, we're at this tipping point where we have got a ton of legacy code out there, and we've got a platform now that we've kind of pushed through that glass ceiling that had been bumping up for so long, and we have it on a pretty good pace as far as release candidates and new releases. I mean, we're up to 7.1 for sure. 7.2 officially released yet? I forget. But things are getting. It is okay. So we're up to 7.2, and there's probably a large chunk of of code bases out there that are still on 5.6 or earlier. So there's a lot of interest on how to get these legacy codes over these humps, and you're starting to see composer packages, more and more composer packages requiring PHP 7, requiring PHP 7.1. I think Laravel 5.6 requires
7.1.
Yeah, 7.1. Yeah. So it's, I mean, we're no longer waiting for these legacy applications anymore. That we're not allowing them to hold back the kind of progress of the platform as a whole. So I see a lot of interest on how to manage legacy code and how to get legacy code current. I think that's going to be at least 1 or 2 talks at Wave PHP this year.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of stuff coming up in December of this year, because that's when security support ends for 5.6. So we're really going to be seeing people in a sudden hurry to update all their code so that it can get up into 7.1. And I say 7.1 and not 7.0 because 7.0 gets security fixes until the 3rd of December, but 5.6 gets it until the 31st of December. So 5.6 is actually going to outlast 7.0.
And it's already outlasted. Oh yeah, 7.0. Yep, you're right. Yeah.
And one of the interesting things to me, one of my favorite terms, has a lot to do with this kind of legacy maintenance, which is technical debt.
Mm-hmm.
And technical debt means that the complexity of the system takes up an amount of time on its own. Just because the system is complex, there's a certain development time for any change. And when you're doing those kinds of ports of legacy wrapped around a framework, or with a framework wrapped around it, you're not eliminating a whole lot of that technical debt. So I think when you're looking to go greenfield versus just updating with some more modern framework stuff, that you have to look into why it is you're doing that and what the change in technical debt is going to mean for the development cycle in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of my favorite terms. It so clearly describes the problem.
All right. You got a new toy this week, didn't you?
Did. I got something that's guaranteed to embarrass me.
Embarrass you?
Yeah. No,
we were giving you a pretty hard time about it in Slack today.
Yeah. Sometimes I say things. I bought a 3D printer kit. And
3D printer kit.
Yeah, and I only say the part kit because it turns out that there's a big difference between a 3D printer kit and a 3D printer.
Okay.
So I'm on day.
Do explain.
I'm on day 4 of assembling my 3D printer.
Is that the difference? Is that the difference between a kit and a printer? Is you're assembling
That's the first one. The second big difference is that fully assembled 3D printers come with some features such as auto bed leveling and predefined z-axis endpoints and things that I'm going to have to learn how to do manually. So I'm at the point of assembling it now where I need to wire the electronics of it, the frame, this all set up, the extruder, all these components. It's all ready to go and get electronics put into it, but I just haven't done that part yet. But then once that's done, I probably have 12 hours of
Holy
trying to
crap.
figure out what the hell this thing is and how it works. And like, do I need to put hairspray on the heat bed or use a glue stick or
Wait,
painter's tape?
did you realize what you were getting into when you bought this thing?
Mostly. Mostly.
That doesn't even sound like fun anymore.
Now, I will say that the instructions and the parts that came in the kit were incredible. This is a clone of the Prusa i3 kit,
Mm-hmm.
and you would not expect the packaging quality to be as good as it is, but it's been very much pick up this piece, put it here, next step, pick up this piece. It's in this bag labeled B. Like, it's been really nicely packaged,
Mm-hmm.
but it is daunting because it's more parts than I expected.
Are you that person? Do you like are you like a Lego person when you enjoy all these small pieces and putting them together?
Yes,
Okay.
I like the correct assembly of things so that you get the final result looking like the picture, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no extra screws. And fortunately, this kit has been perfect for that. There's no extra, or there's lots of extra parts for spares,
Mm-hmm.
but there's nothing missing. Everything is really easy to account for and say, this is what this piece is, this goes here, this goes here. And the instructions have a very thorough breakdown for the first 4 pages
Mm-hmm.
of all of the parts that should be in the kit. So, lots of small parts. I mean, I didn't expect it to be 1,000 parts. I thought maybe it would be a couple hundred, but no, it's 1,000.
My wife is like that as well. She loves those kits, and God bless her for it. She would buy me the like really cool Lego Batmobiles, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those guys. I have a saying, like I'm a huge Batman nut, right? And
Oh, I
everybody
know.
yeah, everybody knows, and my whole family knows. It's they can buy me anything for Batman for Christmas and or my birthday or any special occasion, and I'm happy. And they also know that they don't have to worry about getting me duplicates because I have kind of a pretty strict rule of the first time I get something unique as a gift for Batman, it typically stays however I get it. It stays in the box, it stays packaged, and then I put it away. I love that. I love having the new package stuff. But I'm also a kid at heart, and I want to play with things. So people give me duplicates all the time, and I love that because the duplicates I won't hesitate to take out of the box and play with it and
Bring him
check
in
it
the
out.
bathtub and
Exactly. So the wife would get these really complex Lego assembly kits, and I would look at them like, "That's really cool. Looks really complicated. I'm not taking it out of the box." And she would be like, "No, no, no. We're putting this together." And she would have it together like within like 2 or 3 hours, and it was cool. I loved it, man. I'd get these. I the coolest one she did was a Batmobile, the new Batmobile, and it probably took her like 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, and she piece by piece assembled that thing. It was nice. I like that. I'm not that person. I can't do it. I'm the guy. I'm like, okay, look, it doesn't look exactly correct, but I'm gonna get some crazy glue. We're gonna glue this here, and I'll get a hammer and just nail that piece. We'll just shave that end off. It'll be fine. I don't. I'll refactor later. I just want to get together. We'll refactor and figure out the better way to do it later.
yeah, your
But
Batmobile has some erector set pieces in it.
exactly.
We'll
It's
talk.
like somehow there's like a paper clip on the backs for some reason, and the wife is very meticulous, and she makes sure everything goes in its spot. And yeah,
Now, this struck me though when I was building this the other night that it's an incredibly complicated thing, and then I can make a lot of things out of it once I'm done. And I was thinking about comparative stuff like the Millennium Falcon Lego model that they sell, which is like $400.
hmm
How much do you think I paid for this thing without cheating? Or did you already cheat?
Well, you already told me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how to answer.
I'm really surprised about what you get
$3
out of it.
million.
Well, I paid $300 to get the full kit from Amazon and 2 spools of filament. But you can get it on GearBest, which is the Chinese wholesaler site, for less than $200.
What are your intentions? What do you plan on 3D printing? Is it anything you can actually say on air, or?
Yeah, it's mostly upgrades for my 3D printer.
you're gonna get it working just enough so you can print things to make your printer better, huh?
Yeah. No, my first 4 things that I need to print are a replacement airflow for the hot end, and then belt tensioners for both axes, and then some vertical support frames.
You were a special somebody.
Have you ever been on Thingiverse?
Yes. Oh man, I haven't heard that name in a while. Man.
So nice thing about Thingiverse is that you can create different lists. You can favorite any item, and you can add it to a specific list. So I have lists for each kid in my family that I love. So that's all 3 of them. And I have a list for my wife. I have a list for friends and family. And it's just, I have the sub stockpile now of things that I'm supposed to make that'll take me until Christmas to finish.
So if you're not familiar, Thingiverse is like Pinterest for the 3D printing geek.
Yeah, you can download all the models for anything that you see. You can modify the models in all sorts of programs for editing 3D models. They've got collections for art, utility, toys. It seems to be pretty unimpeded by copyright and trademark, which is nice. There is a fair amount of Batman equipment.
Really? Oh, let me look at that. A little quick search here.
Lots of gamer
look
stuff.
at that! A couple of Batman.
Yeah.
Hey, that's funny. I see this on Thingiverse. I actually have one. A friend of mine with a 3D printer had printed me the Batman cookie cutter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's up on my Batman shelf.
So I'm excited about this. The possibilities are endless, and naturally I had to get myself another toy to go along with it. So one of the things that they don't tell you when you're getting into 3D printing stuff is that if you want to make your own stuff, you have to have one of these.
Oh yeah. You got to be pretty precise with your measurements.
Yeah, got to have the digital caliper. So I've already annoyed my wife pretty well by going around measuring every single thing in the house down to
tell everybody what you're holding.
It's a digital caliper, so it measures things in hundredths of a millimeter, quite small. So I can slide it here to 0, and then I can put a piece of Post-it paper in between it, and I can see that a Post-it note is 0.09 millimeters thick, which is just the geekiest toy I've ever had.
Yeah, I've always wanted a 3D printer, and I know John's with me on this. We've wanted to buy one for the DA would have office when we had an office. We just didn't have enough of a justification to do it. But I just it's one of those things that's so appealing to me. But the technology is changing so rapidly. I'm like, I don't want to be stuck with the old dot matrix printer when next week the inkjets are coming out, and
yeah,
man, I kind of feel like it's like it's like that whole printer thing where before you knew it, every printer on the market could scan, copy, fax, and everything else. And it's just like there's so much happening in that field. I'm trying to be patient. And the reality of it is, I got one. I would probably print 4 or 5 things and then never use the thing again.
I tell you, I've spent hours just browsing Thingiverse, and I would use it a million times. I will never stop using this thing. Thingiverse just has too much stuff on it.
You need to print a Wave PHP logo, man.
I'm definitely going to have something for Wave PHP.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long it takes to print stuff yet because I don't have it working yet.
Still doesn't work. Yeah.
The small problem of basic functionality.
Oh man, technology. I forgot all about Thingiverse. That's funny you bring that up. You need to put that in the show notes.
Absolutely. You know what? I'll model a Wave PHP logo and put it up on Thingiverse. How's that?
Here you go. Perfect. Or a PHP ugly logo if you're going to go that route.
No, I want it to be downloaded once or twice.
All right. I guess NPM had some more excitement happen this week. Did you read about this?
Yeah.
The poor guys at NPM, man. You know, they've done so much for that platform, and they just constantly end up on the short end of the stick of this. So, I mean, we can talk about some of the history and how like people started going over to Yarn because of the lock, like things like the lock file, and the NPM's like, oh yeah, we got the lock file, but they had issues where these rogue, not rogue, I don't know why I said rogue, but developers would pull their packages down only to discover like 4 billion other packages depended on that package. It basically broke the whole NPM network. You know, they're just these constant little problems. And I think this specific issue is something that has come up before, and it's, I guess, resurfaced where
I don't know. I've never seen this before. This is such a bizarre.
Yeah, the story sounded so like when it got pointed out to me, I'm like, this is an old story, right? But it's not. It wasn't an old story. I guess the update to the NPM package. Do you remember what version it is? I'm pulling it up now.
5.7.0.
5.7.0. I guess there was some bug in there that basically changed the permissions on a bunch on an entire directory that it shouldn't have changed permissions on. It would just like hose your complete network.
Yeah,
and,
so if you sudo npm, and just if you run it, not even if you run a command or anything, if you do sudo npm help even, then
really,
yeah, then it would chown etc user boot root user bin.
Why is it even in boot root? I mean, why is it even there?
Why are we still allowing people to sudo run stuff? It's bizarre. But I mean, the comment thread on this is, it's the perfect form of dark humor for tech people. Juggy commented, "This destroyed 3 production servers after a single deploy!" Exclamation. Got 62 thumbs up, 13 thumbs down, 72 smiles, 58 sad faces, 27 hearts, and 330 celebrations. Oh. Yeah, so, and this affects a lot of stuff too, because this affects people running Laravel with React or Vue. Vue was depending on NPM, so if you manage to update it to the newest version, then that's bad.
I guess one of the things I was having trouble following was whether or not was this a pre-release or was this the production release?
This
Because it
people are
seems like
people are
the thread
claiming
goes
this
back
is
and forth.
yeah, people are claiming that this is a pre-release, but other people are saying that according to Semver, this isn't a pre-release. And then people are pointing at a npm.js post that says, "Hey, this might be a pre-release." Nope, don't see that. Either way, it's just
again, we've mentioned this in the past, and I'll mention it again. It does bring up a good point, a good exercise that we need to do with our own code bases and evaluating our dependency on other packages and other workflows and other systems. And as applications become more and more abstracted and more dependent on services, yeah, this plays a huge role in day-to-day operations. If you're in this, if you do this for a living like we do, I think if something like this were to happen to Composer, that would be painful. And I don't know. There's a whole lot of checks and balances in place for Composer to make sure that this doesn't happen. And it doesn't have to be this exact thing. But something similar to it. Everybody's, at least in my world, just about every application I have out there now is dependent on Composer. If Composer goes sideways on me, if an application goes, if a package goes sideways on me, it could be a painful process. So yeah, it's really. I mean, I feel the pain that for people in the npm community or the Node community. Well, it doesn't even have to be Node, right? Everybody's using npm now. I have npm. I use npm on every project I have.
right.
So it's this is a painful thing. Yeah, it's something to think about. I see a lot of posts out there about trying to become less dependent on packages. Like, don't pull in a package just to do 2 or 3 things. It's like if a package is handling a lot of complexity, that's what's so funny.
I would like to point you to my new favorite package.
Okay.
I have to drop this in the Slack channel.
Okay.
This is
what's this?
Proper solid dry library for adding one number to another.
Oh my god. Are you kidding me? That's all this does?
It includes the number collection object, the simple number object, the collection item number proxy, the simple number string parser, the callback iterator, the addition operator, the arithmetic operation, the operation stream, the engine, the calcul and calcul runner classes. So you simply instantiate number collection and instantiate a number parser, parse your 2 numbers, pass them as new simple number objects into the collection item number proxy, and then using the number collection object, pass the proxy for the first number in and the proxy for the second number in, and call the add command. Now, the add command is going to need the addition operator, which may be different depending on your system. So you'll pass in the addition operator and the arithmetic operator, and then pass the results of that into the engine, pass the engine into the calculation front end, which I believe is an interface pattern. Pass the interface pattern into the runner object and execute run, and you will have the result of 1 + 1.
I think that might be a podcast first. You just did a play-by-play of an entire PHP script there. That was actually pretty impressive. I was riveted. I was on the edge of my seat.
I aim to entertain. I love this because this
It's
is
solid though. I mean, that's the thing.
it is. It's the perfect example of solid design taken too far.
Yeah. So back to what we were talking about. I've been trying to be less dependent on packages, and it's so hard, especially when you have people like Spotty out there, or Spatty. You think it's Spotty or Spatty? We had this
Spatty.
conversation today. Spatty?
Yeah.
Especially when you have people like Spatty out there who just kick out the packages that do the most, they can do like a lot of mundane things that it's like, okay, hey, cool, somebody wrote a package for this. I don't have to write the 15 to 20 lines of code myself. And I've been trying to break myself of that habit, and it's hard. Like Guzzle. Guzzle is a big one for me. I will pull in Guzzle in every project, whether I'm using it or not, just in anticipation of having to use it. And it's like, it's not that difficult to make a curl command. It's not that difficult to make
no, but it's ugly. Curl is the curl exec and curl setup stuff is such an artifact of PHP 4 that I'm amazed that it still exists in the form that it does.
Really? I don't have that big of a problem. But that's just an example. There are packages that I can't live without anymore. Like Carbon is a big one for me in Laravel with working with timestamps and stuff. I can't do it without Carbon. I know Cake has a version as well. I forget what they call theirs. And there's a couple packages out there. But Carbon isn't Laravel specific either. You can use Carbon anywhere. And I don't think I could ever go back to having to manage timestamps and time management myself with code, because Carbon does such a great job.
Yeah, in Cake, it's just the timestamp behavior and the time object.
It has another cool name. I'm pretty sure it has a cool name.
L18N?
No. I forget. I can't remember it off the top of my head, and now you're going to make me look it up, so you're going to have to do some filler talking. But
here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab myself a beverage refresh.
What? We don't do beverage refreshes on the show, Thomas.
We do every episode. I just usually do it when you and John are talking. And unfortunately, John is vomiting out every hole right now, so...
It's not a picture I needed in my head.
53, 22, 00.
All right, you do that. I'm going to look this up real quick. Anybody out there watching the show, Cake PHP people, know the time management package for Cake? What the hell is it called? Date and time utility class. Maybe he's right. Maybe it is just called time now. I thought it had another name. Chronos. That's what I was thinking of. Chronos is powered to power its time. Okay, so it is called time now. It was called Chronos.
I gotta look at Cake PHP again too. It's one of those ones that does interest me.
Are you back? Don't come back. I'll talk about it. We can talk about it on there.
I'm back, baby.
You're back? Okay. All right. So Thomas is back from getting his drink. I don't know where you put that cut at, but I'll welcome you back. I was looking at the Cake PHP documentation, and it was called Chronos. You're right. It does look like they call the utility now time. I think prior to 3.5, it was called Chronos, and actually prior to 3.2, they were using Carbon. So that's kind of cool. So Chronos is what they use to power time, which is their kind of Carbon replacement for Cake PHP. But you were saying you're interested in see, I started looking back
in Cake.
yeah, I started looking back into Cake. Like I said, I'm constantly looking at other frameworks, from a business perspective and making sure, we have good things implemented. And I have a history with Cake. I am a fan of it, and I'm a fan of the community. The Cake community is a fantastic community. Larry Masters is a fantastic person. He's kind of the head of the Cake community and the head of the project. And he's pinged me on a couple things. He's a super nice guy. But yeah, I've thought about getting back into Cake. I'm really trying to, like, I stuttered stepped on it, where I found myself going deeper into Cake again, and I took a step back real quick. I'm like, okay, wait, let's look at this from a business perspective. Is Cake the route I want to go? And that's when I started looking deeper into Symphony. And I haven't abandoned Cake by any means, but I feel like I have enough of a basis with Cake, and I have enough of an understanding of the Cake workflow and what Cake brings to the table, where I don't have to do that deep dive like I need to do with a framework like Symphony, where I haven't really worked with it a lot. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of just everything Cake.
Yeah, and every time you bring it up, I keep wanting to get my fingers back into it again. But
I mean, seriously, Thomas, if all you do is kind of hover around, lurk in the shadows of the Cake community, and just see some of the conversations that go on and how supportive everybody is with everybody else, they're one of the few open source communities that I participate in that actually have a community manager.
Really?
Yeah. So Cake has a community manager that sends out updates on the Cake community, and I still get those emails and read through them. Cake is a real solid group. The only issue you would probably have trying to get into Cake, the community is very welcoming and it's very open, but it's also very established. And like a new person kind of getting into a framework, that can be intimidating. It can be kind of difficult to find your place. But yeah, I still would recommend a Cake. And
yeah, but after my keynote at Wave PHP, it's going to be my name will be well known.
You think think you're just gonna We'll see. Let's say charge, as long as it doesn't start with the phrase "charges pending." I think you'll be okay. Well, fun fact. The first PHP presentation I ever did for anywhere, but specifically for SDPHP, was a talk on Cake. So, fun fact.
Oh, there you go. You can tweet that out from the Wave PHP account. I want to cover some news. There's not a whole lot of news this week, but there's a couple things I want to cover.
Okay.
That sounded like a pleading okay? Like, no?
No.
No.
No. Feel free. Yes.
The first one is GitHub. GitHub has decided that there will be no more anonymous gists.
Wait a minute. I didn't see that.
Yep.
Oh, wait. Anonymous gists. So they can still be public.
They can still be public, but you have to tie an account to it now.
I didn't realize you could. I didn't realize you could make anonymous gists.
Yeah.
I don't think I even knew that was a thing.
I guess I'm presenting the news a little late to you then, because now you can't.
I didn't have to let people know this whole time. I was the one doing this. Oh man.
Yeah, I guess they had a problem with spam, and it's just too big to manage, so they're removing anonymity, and that's not a big deal.
I don't think so.
It does go down in the news column. There is something coming up though that is a big deal,
okay,
which is a new change in Chrome.
Another change in Chrome?
Yeah. You know how when you go to an HTTPS secured site, it gives you the little green lock icon?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to one that isn't HTTPS, which there we go. It just doesn't give you anything. It gives you a little gray eye icon. It's an eye with a circle around it. Doesn't really say anything too descriptive. Doesn't draw attention to itself. However, starting July, they will now be giving you a red triangle and the text "not secure" on any site that does not have an HTTPS certificate.
How do you feel about that?
Uh,
I
false
don't know if
confidence.
I have a problem with it, but then I realize how knowledgeable I am with this, and I realize when I see that, I understand what it's saying. My only concern is that somebody like my mother or somebody less technically savvy will go to a website, will see that, and just assume, oh no, my computer's been compromised. Let me call my tech son, tech daughter, tech relative, and ask them 100 questions and find out how compromised my system is. I think the pictures I saw seem potentially misleading as to
Alarming. Yeah, a little
alarming. That,
alarmist.
that
Yeah.
that's a better word. Not really misleading, just more alarming than they really need to be. And let's be realistic. There's still sites out there that don't require HTTPS. There are brochure sites out there that function perfectly fine without HTTPS.
I was
Um,
going to agree with you,
okay,
but I
let's
don't.
not have that. That would be crazy talk.
Yeah. I have 30 tabs open right now, and
Mm-hmm.
only 2 of them don't have security certificates.
Right.
And those 2 are both local dev instances of my site.
Okay. Well, those. Come on, dude. Those don't count.
Exactly. So
So so the
30
but you
something tabs I
but you're
have
not
open,
answering my
all of them
question.
are.
No, but you're not answering my question. See, you have a tendency to do this. You don't distract the question.
I don't think there's a
Like
site that your mother would go to
you
that
go to you
isn't secure.
go to any brochure site. Go to wavephp.com, right? Does that require a certificate?
No, it probably should. It's insecure. It says right here, it says not secure.
There is a certificate on it. It just doesn't auto direct you. But we're getting off topic. It's just a brochure site. Now, I would contest, and again, wavephp.com would fall under this. I would be happy to say if Chrome detected a form on the site, then being a little bit more alarming with the fact that it's an insecure site, because the form kind of implies somebody's submitting information. So if there's a form on the site, then yeah, go ahead and do that. But if you hit a brochure site, you know, your kids'
If it's straight text, then
school choir,
why does anyone
right?
care?
Exactly. There's no form on it. There's no inputs on it. Who cares?
And
So it's not.
I would say by the same note that is if you're trying to stop people from running now, the assumption here is that someone is running a dubious domain and they're generating hundreds of subdomains that are dubiously named and they're trying to spoof a website's URL, then this would throw them off because they'd have to have a security certificate for every subdomain. But
With Let's Encrypt now, that's not even an
it's not
issue.
hard. Yeah, you can bash
Yeah.
script that in a couple minutes now. So it seems like a case of too little, too late.
Mm-hmm.
I and the fact that Chrome forms are still grossly insecure is a bigger problem to me. Where
Mm.
if you use the autofill function of Google Chrome, then it will fill hidden fields.
Hmm.
So you can have a field that says, what's your first name? And if you type in ERI and it asks you to autofill the rest, then the hidden fields that have your address and credit card number, well, maybe not your credit card number, but maybe the hidden fields that are named address 1, address 2, street, city, zip, they're all hidden, but they get filled out with the same autofill data, which is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
Because hidden fields should not get populated from autofill.
Yeah. So I guess I'm not opposed to what Google's doing. I just wish they would be a little more sensitive as far as how they present it. And I would like to see it be a little bit more intelligent. And like I said, if it doesn't detect any inputs, hidden or otherwise, then don't bother.
Site search. Search is very common.
Yeah. But yeah, it's, I don't know. We'll see where this goes.
Well, and I also don't like the lack of community around it as well. When Google announces something like this, it's a blog post that just says Google's doing this now, and it's on the security blog for some guy, and it cross-references just Google's really quick and dirty post on their blog. But Firefox has a guy, or has lots of people who, when something new is coming out for Firefox, if it's their baby, they come out and say, hey, this is my thing. What do you think of it? Tell me about it, and I'll respond to it. You know, Grumpy Programmer works for Firefox.
Firefox, yep.
And when he's got something cool coming out that he wrote, he blasts it out to all of his listeners, and they say, hey, that's cool, or hey, this is a problem right here, and it's addressed by him, you know. And having a blog post that represents all developers and just this is the way it's going to be now is a different feel to it.
Well, I think it speaks to the difference between Firefox and Google in general.
I still really want to like Firefox, but just can't.
I'm trying. I try. I keep every couple of days go back to it. I still have an issue with I still have a resource issue. Which, oh dude, let's talk about resource issues for a second. My freaking Storm is starting to kill me. I don't know
me
if
too.
I don't know if there's something with a recent update, but my damn Storm is just chunking away at my system resources to the point where
the 2018.1 update has started indexing very slowly and not getting out of its index loops in a timely fashion. I've noticed that and haven't mentioned it to anybody.
Yeah, I used to run Storm just all the time. So, and my whole argument was that for people who would say how long Storm took to start up, I'd be like, well, if you code for a living, you just keep it running. And that's how I would be. I would just keep Storm running all the time. Now I have to shut it down every night, because if I don't shut it down, I come back and I have the little pop-up warning of memory usage and too much memory usage. And man, it is absolutely killing me. I see Ted Nugent in our chat yelling Adam, which if you're a listener to the show, if you're a listener to the show, Adam, you would know I was pushing Adam hard there for a while. I was actually using it fairly regularly, and then Visual Studio Code kind of stole the thunder for me on Adam. And if I have to replace PHP Storm today, I feel fairly confident I could do it with Visual Studio Code. I haven't fired up my Atom. Now that you mentioned that, Ted, I haven't fired up my Atom, and holy smokes, man, it's been a while. I should do that just to see how many updates I'm behind. But yeah, Atom and Visual Studio Code. It's interesting because, like I said, we had a really big turnout at our user group yesterday. And that's always one of the conversations, especially new people have. What tools do you use? What are you using? And it's easy for for the professionals, for the people who make a living off of it, especially with the Diego Dev people, everybody uses Storm, PHP Storm.
Well,
But I'm
you guys do a meetup giveaway for PHP Storm, right?
we do, yeah.
So I think everyone at the meetup now has a copy of PHP Storm.
JetBrains is pretty generous with that, yeah. But I always feel like there is a level of commitment to understand what other tools you can offer people that they don't have to pay for, and by far, Visual Studio Code today is my front runner. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, what should I use to get started?" I don't make money doing this. That's where I'm pointing them.
Now, when you say it's your front runner, you mean it's your strong second place, because I know for a fact that you are a Vimaholic.
I am a Vimaholic, yeah. But no, I concede a Vim is an acquired taste. I don't know if I would ever. I don't know if in this day and age,
kombucha of the programming environments.
how I would push somebody down Vim's path. But I do have a lot of developers, especially within the Diego Dev group. Marcus Moore being one of them. David is another one, who seem fascinated by my Vim usage in tools like Atom, like VS Code, like PHP Storm, and they're starting to appreciate the workflow, the Vim workflow. So I'm Vim till I die. We just had this conversation. I cannot get my head around the reaching for the mouse. It drives me nuts. Now, I realize I'm probably somewhat of an extreme case on the other direction, in the sense that, like, I came from Vim. Vim is what I use. I use Vim in all my IDEs. If your
mouse was broken, you wouldn't know it for 3 days.
I use Vim plugins on my browser. Yeah, if my mouse battery dies, it usually takes me about a week to figure it out.
But I get the feeling that in a well-lit room, you would recommend Visual Studio Code, but in a dimly lit alley, you'd be whispering Vim.
Just stick with Vim. It really does everything you need.
No one needs a mouse anymore.
Fun fact, my second talk at SDPHP was on Vim. I don't know if that's true. I did do one, but
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned PHP Storm getting laggy, because I thought it was just me.
Oh yeah, and it's not only is it doing the whole memory dump where it gives you the warning, says, hey, I got to do a memory dump or shut down the app or something, but like near the end of the day, all my keystrokes seem to lag. Like I feel like I'm typing ahead of the ID,
which is a classically Java problem that I experienced a lot with Eclipse, but I never had a problem with PHP Storm. So that's.
Are you seeing that too?
I am.
Man, it drives me nuts. Or I'm seeing
autocomplete is not popping up when it should.
Yep.
And even on simple stuff, autocomplete. The one I've had a really big problem with is autocomplete on a class. So calling it statically, I don't even get the autocomplete, which that should be a really, really simple one to resolve.
And again, talking about the Vim plugin, when those keystrokes are lagging behind, that Vim plugin for PHP Storm really starts to act weird. Like it misses keystrokes and things start to really go kooky on me. So I don't.
We're gonna have to.
I hope they fix it. I hope they fix it.
I got one last thing here in the news for you.
All right, let's do this.
This one, I just don't even know about. It's a new RFC for PHP. Immutable Classes.
This has come up before, hasn't it?
I don't think it's come up as an RFC, as a defined scope of a class, because this adds a whole new scope to classes, which is immutable.
Right.
So
I've
after
heard this
instantiation, it's done.
Yeah, I've heard this conversation before. Maybe it wasn't an RFC yet, and the discussion around whether this is even something we need in our platform. I don't know. I think it has some validity. I think one of the arguments was made that, if I remember correctly, was that immutability helps put PHP in line with other languages as far as kind of the expected implementation. I know there's pushback from a lot of people of, hey, this isn't something we need, so it's not anything we've ever had. What's your opinion on this, John Thomas?
Jamis.
Jamis?
They give an example of an immutable money handling class. And I think
Yeah.
it is the best possible example. I think that if you're looking at an environment with 3 programmers, this is not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at an environment with 100 programmers, then this could very easily be a big deal, where you could say that class immutability is defined by the CTO, and to use the term immutable requires sign off on somebody to say this class is perfect the way it is. You may not override methods. If you're handling money in any way, you have to call the immutable money class. You have to. Now, one of the things it doesn't bring up is the naming convention. They do say, here's an example of a user class, and here's an example of an immutable user class. I think part of the RFC should at least mention, if you're making a class immutable, you should say the name of this class is immutable user. Because having it as part of the class definition is not clear enough. I do see that's one of the things, the problems that I have here is, if you look at how Microsoft operates on its code, Microsoft languages are designed for teams of 500, 600 people working together to produce something.
Mm-hmm.
And so when C# comes out and they rewrite Word into C#, they want to make sure that all of the core functionality of how people in development teams interact with each other is still maintained in an enforced way on their language. And I have a friend at Microsoft who I've talked with this about. And their whole mentality is, yes, when you're implementing things that seem like they should be business rules, but they're actually strict rules on the language, it's because we don't want it to be just a business rule written down in a book. We want the code to represent the business rules.
Mm-hmm.
So this gives us the ability to implement business rules as code. And I think that pushes PHP further into the terrifying quote unquote enterprise world.
It's not terrifying. It's a good way to make a living.
It is.
Yeah. The funny thing about these sort of RFPs, RFCs, and kind of conversations, and the thing that absolutely freaks people, again, like my mother, out, was that end of the day, we are the gods. We are the coders. We can do so much bad stuff. Like the fact that there's immutability in the platform itself doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean I have to take advantage of it. Doesn't mean I can't code around it. And the things we can do on a code level should terrify the crap out of people. I think about it every time I log into like a site even if it's a site like Google or something, anytime I have to type in like a password, I'm like, there's nothing stopping them from grabbing that password, from doing something else with it, from just keeping a dictionary of common passwords you used. It's just like we as developers can do so much without anybody ever seeing it.
Well, just Pornhub. Pornhub has an analytics group that produces fancy reports based off of everybody's search results and activity. Do you know how Pornhub ranks most popular scenes?
Scenes, no. Well,
It's if
for
the
how long
if
it's paused?
Nope. It's if it's the last one you watched, it gets upvoted by one. It's an internal system. They have an internal ranking system where the videos that are watched last in a session get an automatic vote up. And I swear to God, A, hilariously brilliant, but B, that kind of data collection is going on at Google. They're just not sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Pornhub makes these cool graphs and charts that explain how the nuclear threat in Hawaii affected people from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Google already knew that and had a really fancy report for it, but did not release that to the public because they don't think it's funny. They think it's money.
So did Pornhub, as a matter of fact.
True.
And Pornhub released theirs, which I thought was pretty funny.
But the whole thing, I mean, there's just so much. But while I agree with you is that yes, we are the gods, and in the end, these are all ones and zeros, and we can screw with them however we want. There is the issue of pull requests as well, where if somebody is making a pull request that overrides the corporate library for handling money, then that throws a red flag.
You would hope, yeah.
So yes, we can screw with things as much as we want to, but putting business rules into code isn't necessarily a bad idea either.
Yep. All right. Thomas, I told you, I don't think we would miss John. I'm not sure what he brings to the table besides his stunningly good looks and even keel conversations and intelligence.
Disgustingly beautiful
I'm not sure
family.
we need any of that on this show.
No.
Huh?
I mean, we clearly don't need intelligence.
No, and good looks. I mean, we're literally called PHP ugly.
Yeah, we're both married. What do we need?
But I do think we have conversated long enough.
We've filled the required allotted time.
I think my parole officer will be pleased with my community service this week. So
I highly disagree. If this is your community service, you are in trouble.
No. All right, Mr. Rideout. I'm calling it a show. What did we say this was? Episode 96?
96.
Dude,
proud 96.
Rocking and rolling to triple digits, man. All right. That's going to be it for episode 96 of PHP Ugly. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly. I only got to sync up the ending one time this time instead of 3. Hey, thanks.